Hello to Webs, it is I, Hewlett, David Hewlett here with another audio awesome for you, where I read my entire email of awesomeness newsletter to you, so you don't have to, because I know you're important people doing busy, important things. And who has time to read these days anyways? I just want to make sure I get you my science and technology inspirations, because there's so much. We are living in an epoch, and I just want to share all this stuff as much as I possibly can with you. So let's get into it. This week it is a chilling email of awesomeness for you. We have Tardigrade news, which helps us to understand a little bit more how these indestructible little creatures cheat death. These things always amaze me. And so any information, any news that relates to these things, I'm going to share because I just think they're magnificent. So when things get tough out there for this little microscopic invertebrate, they curl into a ball, basically, what they call a ton. And the tardigrade sucks in their 8 little legs, and squirts out any water they've got. I won't make that sound. And then they turn their insides to glass. Don't know what the noise of that would be, like I don't know. But they slow down their metabolism to basically imperceptible levels, which allows them to withstand everything from, freezing to x-rays to space travel and any other manner of nightmare that tardigrade scientists insist on putting them through. These poor things, they're not even extremophiles. They're not actually creatures designed for living in extreme places. They just happen to be good at it, and tardigrades are just beating the crap out of them because of it. Anyways, tardigrades can actually produce a special, what they call a floppy protein, which can solidify into a protective glass shield. So you add water, the glass dissolves or melts, and it bounces. The tardigrades bounce back to life. And it's basically turning their insides into glass when they dry out. And of course, these tardigrade torturing scientists, because I have no idea how else they would figure this stuff out, they believe that they might be able to harness this tardigrade super glass power to create their own version of these proteins that could be used to sort of preserve things like vaccines, where it's where it's very hard to get refrigeration. So basically, sort of create seals for things just like our little tardigrades, dry them out, and transport them around without worrying about them, and then being able to sort of rehydrate them and bring them back to life, like the Tundead that is the tardigrades. Now, my new format means that I'm now going to go on over to the website to continue this little chat. So we're back to the most recent tardigrade insights. Researchers have discovered the specific molecular sensor that triggers these wee beasties to curl up and go into this suspended animation mode. And the sensor is related to a chemical change in amino acids. And amino acids are the molecules that combine to form proteins. And they're basically the building blocks of life. They're everywhere, and we use them for everything. Moss piglets seem to rely on the oxidation of a particular amino acid called cysteine, which it uses to both trigger this ton state and then reverse those changes and bring the wee beasties, in and out of this Tundead dormancy. So when the researchers blocked this amino acid, this cysteine, the oxidation also stopped. The poor tardigrades couldn't go into the ton state, and of course they all died horrible deaths probably. But obviously this is a crucial part of the survival mechanism of these little critters. But as excited as us tardigraders are about all this stuff, we still don't know how it works. I mean, we still don't know how to explain how these tiny little creatures can just shut down their metabolism. They basically shut down their metabolism, die, and then just restart metabolism and, fine, start living again. It's nuts what these things can do. We still haven't figured out, but we are one step closer with this, by figuring out this oxidation thing. The oxidation is related basically to, I guess we call them free radicals in our system, where these I guess there are these proteins that can sort of attach to things, or very likely to attach to things, and in our bodies can cause kind of a problem. Here, they're being used to actually trigger this startup and stop down state, which is just very, very cool. And there's a real curiosity win here, because I love the story behind how this discovery was made, because the project came about because the scientists just I think they happen to have this EPR spectrometer kicking around the lab. I can't remember the actual term for this thing, EPR, but basically it's used to examine atoms and molecules that have unpaired electrons. which is great for this oxidation thing. And, proteins and electrons tend to have a spin. And this spin makes them behave like little tiny magnets. So when you apply an external magnetic field, these magnets will line up either sort of parallel or anti-parallel to the direction of the magnetic field, and it allows them to be measured as they move between these states. So in went the tardigrades, and out came the new death-defying discoveries. I just thought it was kind of neat that they've got this tool in the lab. They're like, what can we do with it? Oh, I don't know. Well, tardigrades are fairly easy to find and have a look at, and they made this discovery because they just started sort of kicking around these curiosity ideas. There's a few things that are needed to make this happen. And I've started doing this. I'm trying to do this with a lot of the articles. Just what do we need to do this? Like, what are the skill sets required to make a discovery like this, to learn this kind of stuff? And I've been actually having AI help me out on this, and ChatGPT help me out with this. So I'll write the story and then have it sort of spit out a list of these things that it would relate to. It's gone through and given me a pretty extensive list here. So this involves molecular biology, it involves chemistry, comparative physiology, because it's the study of the processes that these tardigrades are going through, especially the comparison of other between two other organisms that can do this kind of stuff. There's systems biology, there's biochemistry, and there's biophysics. Of course, the biophysics kicks in with this EPR thing because this spectrometer that is spinning the atoms and molecules in the bodies to get these results. So just an amazing list of tools and skills needed to make this happen. And I think yet another great tardigrade inspiration for us. It really makes me want. I gotta go get a few of these tardigrades out of Ton State and start looking at them again, because I miss those little critters. But now going from the tiniest of little critters to the largest, we're going to talk about the Arctic's fiercest inhabitants, the polar bears. God, we love polar bears. We like the little tiny bears and the giant bear. We're all bears, basically. And it seems that polar bears are the latest biomimicry influencers, and they're inspiring the advanced material and textile scientists out there by harnessing the thermal and hydrophobic, the water repellent qualities of polar bear fur. They've created this new engineered fabric which is leaving all existing coats and jackets in the cold. They've got some nifty tricks up their sleeves, these polar bears, and I want to get into some of them. So first off, hair. Hair itself, great at trapping air. Air is a fantastic insulator. So, of course, you trap the air around the body against the skin. These air pockets combine to form a very effective insulating layer between the skin and the temperatures outside. That's why we wear our woolly sweaters, which make me horribly itchy. I can't wear wool. It drives me nuts. Anyways, but the air pockets are kind of where it ends for wool. Probably why we don't see a lot of sheep up in the high Arctic. Polar bear fur, however, adds even more insulating power thanks to its transparent and hollow keratin hairs. So, wait, so you're saying, hey, but wait a sec, polar bears are they're white. How can they have hollow, transparent hair? Well, if you're hearing voices like me, the hair looks white because it's so extraordinarily good at scattering that light. So it's not actually, the polar bears aren't actually white. They're just, the light is hitting them and getting scattered by this fabulous transparent hair. Looks white to us because it's all of the different colors of light being scattered. And of course that turns into white. Because when you scatter them all, that's what creates the color white. The transparency also helps the heating bills, because unlike materials that reflect UV light, like most materials do, polar bear hair absorbs it. So these harebrained scientists believe that this UV absorption that happens because the UV hits these hairs, it gets bounced around. The polar bear's black skin could be working in tandem with this transparent fur to generate extra heat. But the benefits, they're not limited to warmth, right? Because the fur is great for blending the bear into its stark surroundings, which of course is a big part of why polar bears are such fantastic and effective predators, because you never see them coming. Terrible. It's actually quite terrifying. What do they say? If you see a polar bear, you're like done. That's it. You're dead. I got a couple of diagrams in here showing what they've done. So polar bear hair, big, thick, dense shell with a porous core in the middle. We have now tried to create the same thing with this thing called encapsulated aerogel fiber, using the polar power of, so basically we created a larger porous shell and about the same encapsulated layer, I guess. And the hope is to use these things to for our own benefit. But polar bears are way better at growing this stuff than we are. We've managed to create what we call aerogel in the past, and this uses the whole polar bear porous core hair approach, and it capitalizes on the low thermal conductivity and lightweight properties. But traditionally, it's only been used in like coated panels for buildings and stuff because it's very fragile. You don't want to be bending it and moving it around because it's incredibly difficult to create. So I've included another diagram here showing how they do this. So recent advancements by material scientists at the Zhejiang University in Hangzhou in China have led to the creation of a new type of this aerogel fiber. And they've developed a very cool freezing, in fact, method to create these fibers that are now strong enough to weave. So what do? They wove a sweater. This involves creating that pesky core, right? So the core it's like a crazy amount of air in there. Like it's like 90% air or something like that. It's a pesky core of aerogel. They freeze spin it. So as it comes out of the spinning orifice, it hits this very, very cold plate. The ice sort of literally grows onto this stuff, freezing this aerogel, which is now being spun, and it then gets sort of dipped in this TPU solution, this encapsulating stuff, which is a thermoplastic polyurethane shell, and then this combines in fibers that are waterproof, thermally insulating, and strong, and give a polar bear a run for the money. I've got this great little diagram here showing all the different fabrics. I've got a down jacket, a big fluffy down jacket, a wool sweater, a cotton sweater, and then this encapsulated aerogel fiber. And it is more effective. A tiny little sliver of this stuff, I mean, it's as thin as a little tiny, like it's like a t-shirt thin, is giving the same kind of thermal break that a down jacket does. Down jacket's like this. This stuff is like this, and it's exactly the same kind of warmth. So a huge jump for this kind of stuff. They've also really upped the strength of this stuff. Because keep in mind again that fiber core is it says it's actually over 90% air. Wow. Yeah, so that's why it's so hard to make things out of it. 90% air. It'd be like printing into air. That's why the freeze spinning. So it's amazingly stretchable now. It's able to withstand up to 1,000% strain, which is more than anyone I can imagine ever enduring. I guess unless you're being attacked by a polar bear, that's probably 1,000% of strain right there. It's a proof of concept. It's an ugly sweater. Basically, what they're saying is it's an ugly sweater. Researchers have wove for themselves using the fibers. I've got it up there. You can actually see a picture of it in there. But it's comparable to this big, fat, expensive down stuff as well. So it's from polar bears to polar wear very effectively. So once again, what do you need to know to be able to do this stuff? What are the many different strings you can pull together to get to the point where you're making these polar bear inspired fabrics? Biology, physics, also, for not just for the thermodynamics, but also for the optics, understanding how the polar bear fur interacts with light and stuff. You got chemistry, you got material science, of course, environmental science, biophysics, combining the principles of biology and physics. Woohoo! That is used to understand the physical principles behind the bear's fur properties. There's meteorology and climatology, of course, because you want to understand the climates that these animals are living in, and if we're going to try to live there as well. Evolutionary biology, how the unique properties of this polar bear fur has evolved. Photobiology, so the effects of light on living organisms. And engineering, of course, because you got to engineer this stuff. And then conservation biology, because we want to understand the importance of the polar bears and their ecosystem and the impact of climate change on them as well. So just a great list of stuff coming out of a giant fuzzy sweater. I love it. Actually, not a giant fuzzy sweater. A giant fuzzy bear that has allowed us to make a nice little thin sweater. So next up, and the last story for today is sports, relates to sports, which is weird for me because how did sports get into my science, technology, engineering, arts, and math inspirations? Ha ha! Well, funny story that. My son has become a complete football fanatic. Yep. It's soccer to us, the barbaric North Americans that we are. We use the term soccer. In our house, it's football. I entirely blame my wretched wife for this, Jane. But I will admit that despite my initial despair, I've kind of come around. I'm kind of digging this whole football thing. There's just so much drama in a game. You know what I mean? In a great football game, there's like there's stories and backstories and rivalries and there really is like watching it's almost like a little mini reality show telenovela all wrapped up into a sports game. It's just I gotta say I'm getting a bit of the bug for it. I just can't get over how much there is to know about this. Like even the most innocuous of little games, there's just so much legends and lore that surround these things. And I'm having quite a fun time having Baz teach me about all this stuff because he seems to get a kick out of the fact that I know nothing. Great way apparently to teach kids is to not know anything, it seems. So the thing that's really got me excited though right now is the data. Footballers know that the better the info a team has, the better chance they have of winning. So, games are, sure, they're roller coasters of twists and turns, but and I'm watching my kid get excited about that, but I'm also seeing him get really excited about the numbers, almost as much as he does the games. I mean, so football fans tend to have this sort of contagious enthusiasm, fascination with like player stats and what teams they play with and all the game statistics and the player statistics and every angle of these sports. It's not just soccer, obviously. Soccer's the one I'm familiar with, but this can be applied to lots of different things. So, I just assumed that it was all about counting the goals and, maybe how many winning games you had. But you know what? Nice try, newbie, as I say to myself. There's way more to consider. There's things like shots per game, discipline, which I guess relates to how many cards red cards as well. So you get discipline, how many times you got yellow cards, how many times you got red cards, possession, like how often, the percentage of time that you have the ball, your pass success, something called aerial duels, 1 per game, which I love. Maybe we want to be playing Quidditch here, but that's, if you get the ball when it's up in the air, something like that. Anyways, there's a ton of this stuff. So I started doing a little digging into how these stats are gathered and processed and the tools and technologies to make them possible, because I thought there may be something cool there. And it turns out there's a ton of cool there. All right. So quite recently, FIFA, which is the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, they've created their own open source like soccer data language. And the idea is to help standardize this information gathering, make it available to teams, both big and small, they say. That sounds like they're going to charge money. Whenever they say, it's open to teams, whether they're big or small, as long as they pay the bill. So this is a huge issue with today's vast amounts of data. And that's not just like football or sports stuff. It's data in general. You've got so much data, and it has so many different formats and syntaxes, and some of them aren't even structured at all, this data. So you need to figure out how to organize this stuff. And I think it's really smart that FIFA has come up with this FIFA language. And of course, they branded it right away. But it is open source. So that's the hope is that it's, I'm kind of curious to see what it's like to play with. I was surprised that after each match at FIFA 2021, that they had one member of a team of these analysts assigned to each player. And they had a monitor, and they monitor, track, and code every individual performance. I mean, whether they had the ball or not. So you had one person per player per game doing this. And it was an intensive analysis. It was returning 15,000 data points from every single game. Wow. So it's like an average game before that, they're saying the data points they would get was like maybe 2,000 to 2,500, which seems like a lot to me already, but 15,000 now. And while this seems to be like a kind of an antiquated manual entry approach, so they have a manual entry and they even have like a double checking of the data where they have like another person doing the same thing to make sure the data is right and stuff. Automation is obviously where things need to go. There's a great video from Vox here that talks about how the World Cup's AI instant replay works and some of the tools that they're using there. Add to this manually tracked information, the sensors. We've got sensors on all of the players that are gathering data. You've got cameras, and there's rapidly improving AI, of course, that has image tracking capabilities, highly detailed coverage of the game, and also, I mean, they've got very precise ball tracking already, just using the video technology. They've also got connected smart soccer balls as well. Adidas was a part of this. Adidas, and I think it was Connection, that came together and built this beautiful FIFA soccer ball that has this data thing sort of like floating in the center. It's very, very cool. So if you're looking for another way into sports, I started thinking, well, maybe other than actually being the best player at playing these sports, there's not how else do you get into the sports industry? There's actually a lot of opportunities out there for this kind of stuff. I did a little intelligence gathering. Like I went on LinkedIn and a few other company websites and stuff. There's some amazing jobs kicking around out there. See what I did there? Amazing jobs kicking around out there that combine all sorts of hardware skills, like tech skills, software, game knowledge, and analysis. And there's a lot of companies looking for people for this stuff. There was even a job at a sports tracking company called Hawkeye Innovations, and they do a lot of these sort of camera-based game tracking stuff. They create the whole sort of game tracking system, and they're looking for Unreal Engine developers, like the game, like that Unreal, that game that Fortnite runs on and stuff. They're looking for developers for that because, and it kind of makes sense. It was a bit of an epiphany for me, actually, because I was thinking like, well, okay, so I guess I knew that Unreal Engine could be used for things like broadcast graphics and generating that kind of stuff during a game. But of course, you tie that game technology, which is real-time creation of these graphics, with the data. You got a perfect partner for visualizing this huge amount of data. So this massive trove of information, it can provide team analysts, coaches, players, sports shows, and fans all kinds of new insights and help them sort of better understand and enjoy the game, which of course sounds like a major win to me. I am just really excited because I see this other way in. Like kids are talking about getting into video games, but if they're also into sports, wouldn't this be a really neat little way of still studying sports and yet being in this scientific analysis side of stuff as well? Like bring your fandom to science would just be marvelous. So let me wrap up by saying, are you enjoying this email of awesomeness? Would you like to help me keep doing it? I think you might. So why not head on over to our Patreon and become a fabulous Patreon supporter like some of these wonderful people who I'm going to name and shame right now. I did ask them first to make sure that was okay, but I just thought it'd be kind of nice to sort of let people know who's been helping out, because people have helped out and some of them are still helping out, and it is so appreciated. So there's the fabulous Sean Girk, the wonderful Shauna Gates. Shauna's been around forever. She's fantastic. Mandy, doesn't want anything else, just Mandy, that was it. Rachel Wright, Thomas Craig, and we have an author in our midst, Sarah Bewley, who I'm happy to send you to her websites. Go check her out. And thanks so much to everyone who's previously or continuing to help us out and support this magnificent lifelong learning adventure. I very, very much appreciate it. And like I say, if you want to get listed in my getting a shout out in my email of awesomeness, then please do sign up to the Patreon, and obviously join us at techbandits.org if you get a chance. And so, until we geek again, I will say, be brave, be kind, be brilliant. Cheerio and huzzah!